Documentary credit or letter of credit is the irrevocable undertaking of the issuing bank, and the role of issuing bank has been precisely but in very depth discussed in UCP Article 7, that is issuing bank undertaking. Yes. Today, we are diving deep into a cornerstone of international trade finance. Specifically, we are going to unpack one of its most critical articles, Article 7, which deals with the issuing bank's undertaking to the beneficiary and other parties who act under the instructions of the issuing bank. If you are in imports and exports dealer or entrepreneurs, bankers dealing with import and export business and customers, so on, or studying trade finance, this is an episode you should not miss. The presentation on Article 7. So you may take a notebook with a cup of tea or coffee, and let's get started together to invent the world of the undertaking of the issuing bank. First, what is an undertaking? In simple terms, it's a formal promise or commitment. When we talk about the issuing bank's undertaking under Article 7, we're talking about the solid, legally binding promise that the bank makes when it issues a letter of credit, or LC. This promise is the very foundation that gives the LC its power and makes it a reliable payment instrument for sellers around the world. Let's break down Article 7a. It starts by saying that an issuing bank is irrevocably bound to honor a presentation as of the time it issues the credit. The key word here is irrevocably. Once that LC is issued, the bank can't just change its mind or pull back its promise, provided, of course, that the documents presented are compliant. This is a huge deal, right? It means a seller, the beneficiary, can ship goods with the confidence that if they meet the LC's requirements, they will get paid, regardless of what the buyer, the applicant, might do or say later. So what does it mean to honor a presentation? UCP 600 defines honor in 3 ways, and the issuing bank's undertaking covers all of them. The first is to pay at sight. This applies to sight LCs. If the beneficiary presents compliant documents, the issuing bank must pay immediately. No delays, no waiting for the buyer to approve the payment. The bank's promise is independent of the buyer's financial situation at that moment. The second way to honor is to incur a deferred payment undertaking. This is for LCs that are payable at a future date, say 60 or 90 days after the bill of lading date. When the bank receives compliant documents, it doesn't pay right away. Instead, it formally accepts the obligation to pay on the specified maturity date. This acceptance itself is a firm commitment. The beneficiary now has a guaranteed receivable from the bank, which is much more secure than a receivable from the buyer. The third method is to accept a bill of exchange, also known as a draft, and pay it at maturity. This is common in acceptance credits. The beneficiary draws a draft on the issuing bank. Upon receiving compliant documents, the bank accepts the draft, essentially stamping it with their guarantee to pay on its due date. This accepted draft becomes a negotiable instrument, meaning the beneficiary could even sell it to another bank at a discount to get cash early, a process called discounting. The beauty of Article 7 is that it creates a clear separation between the bank's duty and the underlying sales contract. This is known as the principle of autonomy. The issuing bank deals only in documents, not in goods, services, or performance. Its obligation is to examine the presented documents against the terms of the LC. If the documents match, the bank must pay. It doesn't matter if the buyer is complaining that the goods are the wrong color or arrived late. Those disputes are to be settled between the buyer and seller based on their sales contract, completely separate from the LC transaction. Let's imagine a scenario. A clothing exporter in Vietnam has an LC from a reputable bank in Germany for a shipment of jackets. They ship the jackets and present all the required documents, the commercial invoice, bill of lading, packing list, and certificate of origin to the issuing bank through their own bank. The issuing bank examines the documents and finds they are all perfectly in order, a complying presentation. According to Article 7, that German bank is now irrevocably obligated to pay the Vietnamese exporter. Even if the German buyer suddenly goes out of business or tries to cancel the order, it's irrelevant to the bank's duty. The bank's promise was made to the exporter, not to the buyer. This protection is what makes international trade possible on a massive scale, bridging the trust gap between parties who may have never met. Now let's look at the conditions. The issuing bank's undertaking is not unconditional. It is triggered if and only if a complying presentation is made. What is a complying presentation? Article 2 of UCP 600 defines it as a presentation that is in accordance with the terms and conditions of the credit, the applicable provisions of UCP 600 and international standard banking practice. This is why document preparation is so critical for exporters. A single typo, a missing signature, or a date that contradicts another document can create a discrepancy. If there are discrepancies, the presentation is no longer complying, and the bank is no longer bound by its undertaking in Article 7. The bank can then refuse to pay. This is the flip side of the coin. The bank's promise is ironclad, but only if the beneficiary holds up their end of the bargain by providing flawless documents as stipulated in the LC. Sub-Article 7A also says that the issuing bank undertakes negotiation with a nominated bank and that nominated bank does not negotiate. In this condition, the issuing bank must fulfill its commitment for negotiation to another bank and advance fund, even if the nominated or the confirming bank do not play their roles. This is where the roles of the nominated bank and confirming bank, which we'll cover in other videos, become important. They often check the documents before they even reach the issuing bank to help catch and correct discrepancies. But ultimately, the final decision on whether a presentation is compliant rests with the issuing bank. They have a maximum of 5 banking days following the day of presentation to determine compliance and give notice of refusal if they find discrepancies. And the notice of discrepancies must follow the instructions of Article 14 of UCP 600. Otherwise, clear instructions may not be given to the presenter in accordance with this rule. Sub-Article 7C says, an issuing bank undertakes to reimburse a nominated bank that has honored or negotiated a complying presentation and forwarded the documents to the issuing bank. An issuing bank's undertaking to reimburse a nominated bank is independent of the issuing bank's undertaking to the beneficiary. So let's tie it all together. Article 7 is the engine of the letter of credit. It establishes the issuing bank's absolute, irrevocable promise to pay, incur a deferred payment undertaking, or accept a draft, as long as the documents presented are compliant. This undertaking is independent of the sales contract and the buyer's willingness or ability to pay. It transforms the buyer's commercial risk into the issuing bank's credit risk, which is far more secure for the seller. For importers, this means choosing a reliable issuing bank is crucial. For exporters, it underscores the absolute necessity of meticulous document preparation. Let's now examine what other sub-article says. Sub-Article 7b says, an issuing bank is irrevocably bound to honor as of the time it issues the credit. So, the irrevocable nature of the credit and the issuing bank's firm commitment is declaration to all parties when they act according to the terms and conditions of this article, the LC and the International Standard Banking Practice. Understanding the power and the conditions of the issuing bank's undertaking in Article 7 is fundamental for anyone looking to trade internationally with security and confidence. It's the mechanism that ensures the seller gets paid and the transaction flows smoothly. I hope this detailed breakdown of UCP 600 Article 7 has been helpful for you. It's a complex topic, but its importance in global trade cannot be overstated. If you have any question, please drop them in the comments below. I love hearing from you and will do my best to answer. Thank you so much for watching and supports. If you found this video valuable, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell, so you would not miss our next deep dive into trade finance. See you in the next video. Thank you.